So 2025's first property from the Marvel Cinematic Universe is out now. That is the first 2 episodes of the animated show Friendly Neighborhood Spiderman has been out. There are a total number of 10 episodes, but right now only 2 episodes are out, and let's talk about the first 2 episodes because I absolutely loved the first 2 episodes. This video is going to contain spoilers for the first 2 episodes. Therefore, if you haven't seen the first couple of episodes, please come back to this video. And if you don't care about spoilers, let's continue. Alright, so the first things first, I have to talk about the music, the intro song. As soon as I heard it, I had one arm like this. I was like, nice, they have done a fantastic job out there until they ruined it. I mean, not ruined it, but yeah, they kind of added the rap in it, and I'm not a fan of raps, but anyways, that's just my personal opinion. But hold on, what they did there right was they integrated or they kind of remixed the original cartoon song, the cartoon that came out in the 1960s, and that is one of the most famous Spider-Man theme. Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. They used that same theme here in parts, in bits and pieces, of course, but they kind of recreated it, they kind of remixed it. But it was great to see that they used the first cartoon song in this first Spider-Man show coming out from Marvel Animation. Okay, so that was the first thing that I wanted to talk about. And the other thing is, does this take place in our MCU, like in the main 616 Earth timeline? The answer is no. But the thing is, it doesn't really feel completely different from the main Spider-Man stories that we have seen in the movies. It doesn't feel that different, though I understand that a lot of characters are taken in from the comics, which I don't have a lot of knowledge about. So if you guys know something about it, please do let me in the comments. But the thing is, this show doesn't take place in the MCU's main timeline, but it takes place in a different timeline. But it is not very different from the main timeline because there are a lot of same things that are happening in this. And I'm going to talk about two particular things which kind of happened in our main timeline as well, but are drastically different, so stay tuned for that. But the episode really started with a shocker. Spider-Man goes out to Midtown High. That's his first day. He's having his orientation. He talks about Uncle Ben. Yeah, that was quite interesting. He talks about Uncle Ben, he hugs Aunt May, and he just gets out of his car, and there is an alien invasion. A portal opens up in the sky, and I was very shocked to see that because it was just the starting moments of the show. Doctor Strange comes in with a symbiote alien looking creature, a Venom symbiote dressed as an alien, shaped as an alien or anything. But the interesting thing is that while fighting him, Doctor Strange says, "We were not supposed to be here."
Oh no, we're not supposed to be here.
And we are shown the title of Midtown High, and then Doctor Strange says, "We were not supposed to be here." So I think this is going to be a huge moment because what follows is quite interesting. We get a time jump of a few months, and after that, we see Spider-Man doesn't go to Midtown High. That's pretty interesting. He goes to a different school. That is extremely interesting because that might well be what you can say, an incursion that happened. Or I mean, okay, that could, okay, we are gonna still have to wait for next few episodes to figure out what exactly Doctor Strange meant by that. But anyways, that was a very, very good and a very different start. Another interesting thing happened there. We were always kind of thinking on the lines of, when did Tom Holland's Peter Parker got bit, and what spider was that? Because we all know Spider-Man gets bit by a radioactive Spider-Man. Sorry, Peter Parker gets bitten by a radioactive spider. Therefore, he turns into Spider-Man. He gets the powers. But in the MCU, for the longest time, we didn't know from where that spider come from. Because there's no Oscorp Tower in the main MCU, but there is Stark Tower, and the only place from where that spider would have, bitten our Peter Parker, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, could have been from Stark Tower. But here we get the answer, but still not a very good answer. We see the portal from which Doctor Strange comes down. The spider was hanging from there, and I was confused. What made that spider go there? How could that spider possibly be there and just hanging from the portal? But anyways, he comes down. Extremely good start. A lot of questions, but I'm sure we'll get all the answers in the next episodes. And the next thing that we have to talk about is the costume. We all saw this costume in the promotional material of this show, but it was quite interesting because it feels DIY. do it yourself. And Peter Parker does things by himself, at least at the start of it. All the costumes are made by him. It was a very well detailed, costume. We have that cylinder, that tank, from which I assume some gas would have leaked, and that could make his web shooters and all. And then I picked on something, and I think everyone picked on that. There are a lot of changes in gender and the race of some of the characters. Like Harry, for instance, he was different. Then the Dr. Connors, gender swapped. Dr. Connors was changed. Now, yeah, I think it's a fresh change. Yeah, I know we have, for the longest time, we have seen certain characters in certain color and in certain gender. Changing that, I don't see it hurting anyone. In fact, that made all of these characters feel fresh. The next thing we have to talk about, all the friends of Spider-Man quite different. Like as I said earlier, that I don't have no possible knowledge. I have to say I have no possible knowledge of the comics, but I have seen a lot of cartoons that used to air on TV. I have seen all the Spider-Man movies, live action ones, and I'm a big fan of Spider-Man through those live action movies itself. But anyways, a lot of friends of Spider-Man, for example, Pearl, she was different. Nero, she was different. Lincoln was different. Everyone was different. So that again gives us an idea that, okay, this is not the 616 timeline. It is completely a different timeline, but it is still a lot similar to our original 616 timeline. And why is that? Let's talk about those 2 points which I promised on talking about earlier. The first things first, the card of Queens really matches or is really with close resemblance with the first time that we saw Queens in the MCU, and that was in Captain America Civil War. You can see the difference. I mean, you can see the similarities here. But that is just one little point there. The second point, another quite interesting point, and that is the end of the first episode. Spider-Man finds this DVD player. He walks to his house and sees a great fancy car, takes a selfie with it, posts the selfie, goes up through the elevator, takes his key out, enters the room, and that whole shot was framed exactly, almost exactly like the entry of the Tom Holland Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War. That means in the MCU, they almost tried to replicate that scene. And when that scene was going, in fact, from the moment that he saw the DVD player, I was like, okay, this is interesting, because I don't see any DVD players lying around now. That was quite interesting. And then he sees the car, and then he goes up and the song plays, and I was like, I have seen this before. And exactly my mind went to the Tom Holland's entry in Civil War. And in fact, let me tell you, the song that they used there was exactly the same song as well in both the scenes. But anyways, he gets off the elevator, he goes into his room, and I was clearly seeing, okay, what's happening? This is exactly what happened in Civil War. Is he going to meet Tom? Is he going to meet Tony Stark? What's happening here? What is happening here? And then we see Norman Osborn, and I was like, oh my goodness, what a way to start the episode, or to start the season, because that was the end, that was the climax of the first episode. Extremely excited at that point, because that was kind of that moment where you see Tony Stark was the mentor of Spider-Man. Now it's Norman Osborn. And we do know that Tony Stark does exist in this universe, because when Aunt May drives Spider-Man to his orientation for Midtown High, we can see what do you call it, a toy or whatever that is, or whatever this is called. We see this hanging in his car, and we can clearly sense by that okay, Tony Stark exists, or Iron Man, so to say, exists in this universe, but now his mentor is Norman Osborn. That was crazy. That was a very good end to the first episode. And then we get to the second episode, and we see Norman Osborn gets Peter Parker to Oscorp for internship. And then I was like, okay, I can see where this is going. This is mirroring the exact things that happened in the Civil War, in the live action MCU. And at that point I was wondering, okay, I think they have completely swapped the characters of Tony Stark with Norman Osborn, and this is how they are going to progress with the story. That means Norman Osborn is going to recruit Peter Parker for something. But then Norman Osborn didn't know that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, because he shows him a footage, and that footage is the one that happened inside the Oscorp building while Peter Parker dressed as Spider-Man went off in the first day, for which Peter Parker thought he was going to get fired. May not be true as well, because we haven't seen what happens after that, because that was the end of the second episode. But we can clearly see that they have done a lot of things similar to the Earth 616, the main MCU storyline, and a lot of things different as well. That means it is definitely not in the MCU. It is, of course, in an alternate timeline, but that timeline is not very different from the main timeline. Yeah, the characters are some of the characters are different, some of the genders are different, but some of the storylines are quite uncanny. Whoa, you can't ignore that. You can't ignore that. And for a matter of fact, let me tell you, when this show was announced, I think way back in 21 or 22, or maybe 23, no, before 23, I guess. At that time, talks were happening in the lines of that this show, Friendly Neighborhood Spiderman, at that time it was named as Spider-Man Freshman Year, and that was going to follow the story of Tom Holland's Peter Parker in an animated form before he was recruited by Tony Stark in the movie Civil War. So we were going to have the origin story of him, but then they changed it. They changed it completely, and this is the changed product. So again, they are still dabbling on that idea, but still, just showing us a different side from a different universe, from a different perspective. That's quite interesting. But I have to say, the first two episodes were extremely good, very, very good. And I can see this show going into good direction. There are 10 episodes. We are going to talk about every episode after the release of each episode. I have a couple more channels. One channel dedicated for the Indian cinema, and another channel dedicated to movies, on which I am going to discuss about all the Oscar contention movies. So you can see both the channels here. You can check out both of the channels. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching.